Imagine you move from a place where you lived all your life. Imagine you move and you leave all your children and wife. Starting all over again, but no one you know is around. Well, they didn't have to imagine. They built it up from the ground. How does it sound? Not easy cause it isn't. Could have phased them, but it didn't. But the raid bond, that's a winner. And they ran straight to the finish. You get to know them up close and personal. Wait, just give me a minute. Welcome to the front row. Can I get a drum roll? Intentional. We may be immigrants, but we are still intentional. We are dependable. It's just that set the bar, but still the best of all, we are intentional.
Thank you for joining the Intentional Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Yolanda Jack. Today's guest is Sania Dookie. Sania Dookie is a registered social worker, and she will be speaking to us today on the topic, Immigrants Parenting Successfully. Feel free to connect with the Intentional Immigrants podcast at www.intentionalimmigrants.com. The podcast is available on YouTube. It's available on Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcast. Hi, Sania. Welcome to part 2 of our Immigrants Parenting Their Children Successfully episode. All right, I have a question.
Yes.
We were talking before, and you were saying that culture does play a part, but not to a great degree or to a great extent. But think about it. I have read somewhere, I don't remember where, that we parent as we were parented. And that it takes intentionality in order for us to parent differently, like taking the best part of those parents that we like and admire, or those parents that we saw how they handled a particular situation with their children. Like growing up, you say, oh, I like the way that parent handled the child or handled this circumstance. How can we adapt from the situation where culturally, especially, I know when I was growing up in Jamaica, I mean, your parents' word was the law.
Yes.
So the thought was children were to be seen but not heard. Mm-hmm. And if you were in the pathway of a pot, shoe, you dare not.
Yes.
Back chat.
No, yeah.
Or talk back to your parents.
Unless you're flexible, you can run quick, run fast.
Exactly.
Parents have a bad memory. They don't remember what you did earlier in the day.
Exactly. Or if we have the situation where you do something wrong and your parents said to you, the next time you do something like this or anything else you do,
yes,
you're going to get double dose.
Yes.
So you're not going to get beaten this time for this offense.
Yes.
But you can be sure that the next time you slip up, you are going to get it.
Yes.
And you're going to get double portion.
And, and there are some children who did get punishments for what they didn't do yet. They said, this is for what you're going
just in case. So how do we navigate from the just in case beating or the corporal punishment to a situation where you're asking us as parents, us as immigrants, one, we're in a new country, new society, different rules, different norms, and you're asking us to parent differently. Yes. And how are we to parent successfully? Tell us about that one.
Yeah. So the thing with culture is that there are different influences or factors that have helped us to be who we are today. Environmental influence, which is our culture, traditions, and situations that happen around us. We have heredity, like it's in the bloodline, genetics, genes, DNA, stuff like that. And also our circumstances, how we deal with those throughout our time. So, culture is an important factor to consider when it comes to assessing our parenting, but it shouldn't be the rule book as to how you parent, because parenting a child, nurturing a child supersedes what a culture does.
Okay.
It's the person, it's the child, not the culture, right? And I know, like, I can speak of Western culture, because I'm not like exposed to other types of culture, but the Western culture, what I know about is that it supersedes parenting, and who the child becomes at the end of the day supersedes cultural or societal norms. Because now we're having children being born in different places and different cultures and all that stuff. And you're right. We do see parenting from how we were raised. So in my parent transformation program, that's actually the first part of what we work on, which is connecting with ourselves, understanding ourselves, our past experiences, our history, probably possibly traumas that we've been through, and how that is speaking into our current parenting situation. And so that's why we have to practice a level of intentionality and self-awareness. Because yes, there are aspects of parenting experiences that we will want to adapt. We want to continue that. And that's not culture. That's the parenting experiences that we have had. Right? So we want to continue with that. But then there are other areas we realize that for me, that didn't work. It was unhealthy. Therefore, I'm not going to continue with that. Sometimes we can go to the extreme, Yolanda, where I used to get spanking and I used to get this. Therefore, I'm going to make sure that my child
experiences the same thing.
So we go to the extreme end, and that's where we get permissive, right? And so we got to be aware of that too. Say, for example, I'm going to shower my children with gifts because I didn't get anything when I was growing up. But overindulgence, what are the effects of those as well? So we have to be very intentional about parenting. And for those who are listening to me, by now, you probably think, oh my gosh, this thing is hard work.
It is.
Yes.
It is. It's the hardest work I've ever done.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's hard work, and you know what? There is no specific rule book to say do this from step 1 to 100 and you've done parenting perfectly. There is none. But there's a lot of things that we can do and do well that can have positive results in the end. And that's kind of what I'm telling parents. Like, there are no perfect parents. Even parenting experts struggle on a daily struggle. Yeah, I struggle. I'm a parenting expert and I struggle. But I found that when I do use the principles that I teach and what I've learned about, they help me. They work better. And I can see that in the long term as well for my children. Because it's a good thing that I started to change the mindset of my parenting, because before I had children and before I was immersed in reading child development and nurturing and all that stuff, I was prone to be the authoritarian parent.
You were?
Yes.
You don't hit like that.
That's the
you
mindset
don't hit
I
me
have.
like that.
Don't seem that way, right?
No,
But
you don't.
And that's how I was raised, especially in my earlier times. But then when I got older and my mother got the message and she realized that connection worked better. So she did a really good job of turning things around. But yeah, that's how we learn. And that was my thing too. Like, I don't play with no kids. Like, we don't play with them. That was my attitude. They need to know who is boss and all that stuff. And I'm really thankful that I was able to get into this early on in the stage of my parenting, and had to change my mindset. And I started to look at my child for who they are. They are flesh and blood with a soul, with their own mind, their own personality. And I have to see them that way and nurture them that way based on what is good for them, for their health, for their development. And if we look at it that way, then we'll be willing to do the work, the hard work of unlearning a lot of things that we have learned, doing some intentional self-reflection, some self-awareness work, monitoring our own self, maybe healing as well. A lot of us need to do healing, because even when you try to do the right thing, even though you try to do the right thing, it can be hard if we haven't worked through the stuff, our own trauma. Right.
Our own mess.
Yeah, right. So those are some of the things that I support parents to work on. And it's something that I have to be constantly aware of as well as I practice my own mindfulness, my own self-awareness. So being intentional, I love that you bring that out. Intentional immigrants, right? Intentional parenting. I'd say that would be the first step in changing our parenting approach. Be intentional and practice self-awareness. You know, where is my approach coming from? Is this coming from my trauma experiences, or is this something that I know is healthy for my child? If you're not sure, go get help. Go read books. There are lots of lovely resources out there. The second thing that I wanted to bring out, especially for those parents who are saying, oh my gosh, I think I
broke it.
Yes.
I broke it.
Oh my gosh. How do I get back to that place? And that's something that I kind of help parents with that as well in our parent transformation program. But the first thing is to recognize that, yes, we probably did some things that wasn't healthy and caused to build a wall between us and our child. And coming to that realization, and this is I'm talking to parents who feel like, oh my gosh, we've gone through the door and I feel like there's no turning back. When you reach the point of acknowledging what we have done and not making excuses for it, and placing that experience within the right context, because a lot of it is reactive from our own trauma, but we do have a choice to make. And now the next step is deciding, I want to do differently, and I'm going to dedicate that time to doing differently. This is when you want to rebuild your relationship with your child, but they're not going to trust you right then and there, like overnight. It's going to take some work, and it's going to take a lot of parent humility without losing yourself, becoming permissive, and losing your core values as a parent. So you're doing both. What is the best for my child? But at the same time, how can I build that relationship with my child? So a little activity that you could possibly do is, and this is the hardest, I think one of the hardest activities in my parent transformation program, is having an apology session with the child. It could be through a letter, or through, if you have contact with the child or have enough influence to go with them on ice cream or whatever, depending on their age, to have an apology session with them, to name the things that was done wrong, the wrong approach, to name, say, I know I did this, and this is what happened. And I know this probably in fact impacted you in this way, and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, not, but, you know, you made it hard for me, kind of thing, right? Because that just invalidates everything. But, and I'm very sorry about it. And then you move on to, I am willing to start working, or almost like a fresh start, even if it's going to be slow, to start nurturing a healthier and better relationship with you. Because even when you're 100 years old to me, you're still my child and you mean a lot to me. but I need your help with this as well. I'll try to do my part, but I also want you to help me because it's the first time I'm going to have like a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, or a 10-year-old. It's the first time. And you're the expert in being a 10-year-old at this time. So, work with me. And then ask for feedback. What are the things that you went through that I wasn't aware of, or you think I wasn't aware? Is there anything on your heart that you want to say? And then some kids, then be like, yes, by the way, you remember when, right? And yes, that's good because they're getting out that anger and that frustration. And this is very triggering for us as parents because we feel that shame, that guilt about it. But at the same time, look at it from a healing perspective. They're getting the chance to talk, and they are also feeling heard for the first time. And once they feel heard for the first time and feel like they have connected with you, then that's when the wall that has been up starts to tear down. Slowly at first, because they're going to want to test to see if this is true. Are they legit with me? Right? And they test. So we need to practice that self-awareness, that healing work, so we can be consistent and be true at heart about the changes that we want to make with our children. Because if we're not genuine and if we're just behavioral about it, we're going to get frustrated, we're going to give up, and eventually they're like not trusting us anymore. So once you're ready to do this work, if you need reinforcement, if you need support to do it, definitely get help to go about doing that. So that's my little bit there as it relates to if everything has gone through the door and you kind of want to repair things, repair the rupture. Repair. Takes time, but be patient and continue working on yourself and do what you know is best. Eventually your children will realize that, oh, they're actually really trying. They eventually will decide, okay, I think this is it. Like, okay, because they do need that connection. Children, they do need that connection. They just sometimes stay away because they don't feel safe or they don't trust, right? And once they start feeling safe again and feeling that trust again, the craving of the attention, the connection, they will, even if they're teens, they will want to get back into that. Okay. But it takes time. So that would be it for that. So the second stage, or the other aspect that I want to talk about, is how do I start to work with my children and discipline them in a healthy way where we both have a mutual understanding. Now, this is where you and your spouse need to sit down and say, what are our core values in our home? What is it that we would like, that we know is healthy, that we want to teach our children and uphold in our children's life and training and discipleship? Write those down. Then what you want to do is you want to have a family session with your children to say, okay, kind of aware that we ain't be doing things the way we're supposed to be doing. Like, there is a different approach we have taken to disciplining and supporting you, and we would like to change that. And we're going to start out with establishing where we're at. It's kind of the same thing at the same thing as conflict management is. Let's see where we're both at. Let's level the plane here. And you want to share the core values that you want the family to uphold, and at the same time you want to hear your children's feedback and how they feel about it, how they think it will it helps them. And when we do that, it has more meaning to them. It's less dictatorial and more, this is us doing this together. And then we also want to talk about established rules and boundaries, because children thrive really well with consistency and boundaries. Mentally and emotionally, it helps them as well. Developmentally, it helps them as well. So we don't want to take that out, but it's how we do it. So we talk about, you want to have that conversation with them about the rules and regulations of the home, and from a heart perspective, you want to talk to them about why these things are. I know this is very uncomfortable because parents always feel I shouldn't have to tell my children why, they just need to do it. But at the same time, like, they're humans. Just picture your boss saying you have to do this without an explanation, right? You're gonna feel not good.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have the conversation with them, and of course, consequences as it relates to that. So you have that understanding as children as already, and basically they are learning accountability, because if they are not able to carry out these factors because of their choice, not necessarily just because they're having difficulty with something, but they just choose not to do it, then they're agreeing to whatever that consequence was, natural, if it's natural consequences or things that you guys discussed ahead of time, they're agreeing to those consequences, right? And so that's one area of maintaining that standard and discipline and structure in the home, getting everybody on a level plane, and also setting the stage of what your expectations are. So when you're ready to correct your children, they won't be surprised. You won't be confused. Like, how do I respond to this now? They already know. Y'all, everybody already know where everybody stands.
On the same page.
Yeah. So let's say everybody's emotionally riled up. Let's say you have a child and you're talking to them, you're saying, okay, John, it's time to turn off the television and let's get ready for bed. And your child decides that, no, I'm not ready, or maybe they start crying depending on their age. This is a time when we're like, oh, what did you say? What? No, we feel triggered to like, hey. But this is the time when we want to connect with them. Like, what's going on in their world and their brain at this point in time, why they're acting or reacting the way they are at this point. Sometimes it could be other factors, which is too long for me to talk about today. But there are other factors. We're talking simple factors, like it could be, is it the end of the day where the child is usually tired? When a child is tired, sometimes they're very reactive. It's harder for them to listen and they're more irritable, right? Could that be a reason, right? Or is it that they have a hard time transitioning from one activity to the next? Do they need help with learning to transition? Do we need a plan on how to properly transition? Or could it be that there is some issue with screen time, right? Just as an example, because sometimes that screen time can be stimulating and almost addictive. So things like those you want to help with. So when we ask the questions like those, be curious about what really is going on instead of reacting. We're dealing with the right issue. And that is where the long-term implications come in. Okay. So what you would do is you want to connect with the child because they're in that rigid or chaotic stage, very emotional. You want to reach them on that emotional level, connect with them on that emotional level. And almost you're not really, it's not like you're agreeing with what they're doing, but you're validating where they're coming from. Like, I understand you're upset or you're disappointed. And you have to part with this right now and you don't want to. So you're just stating what you're seeing and you're observing. Once you do that, you literally have started to quiet down their emotional center, the area of their brain that is reactive, because they're feeling like you're connecting with them, they're connecting with you. And once you've helped that to subside a little bit and calm that a little bit, then the part of the brain that they need to connect and reason with you rationally, that comes back online. So they're integrated, right? You see where I'm getting at here? Takes a little bit more work, but it works out, because that's when you can
a whole lot of maturity.
Yes, it does. And it's easy to explain, and the rationale behind it, but when it comes to doing it,
it's difficult.
Yes. So that's why we get into parent self-care, mental health care, emotional care, and all that, because we do need to do that. If we're not doing well, we ain't gonna be able to execute these things correctly.
Yep.
But we gotta look at the long road. What do we need to do in the long term? Always think long term. What do I want to accomplish in the long term for my child? So these are packs of different interventions that I would suggest to you. It's kind of hard to cover a lot, but the first thing is being intentional. If you need to repair rupture, be humble, open for exploring and healing that process. May need to go get help with that. Then you want to move on to establishing standards and expectations in the home, and accountability for actions and natural consequences and all that stuff. And then you want to look into, when we're having difficulties, is there something else going on that I need to address? Is there something else going on with their body, their brain space, their outlook, their worldview? And is it something that I can connect with them about and help to address that from a heart perspective? And those are things that have a lasting impact. Yes. So I think the last thing I'd say is, if we try these things, they will work eventually, and sometimes they'll probably work quicker than you think. But they probably won't work all the time. So don't be discouraged, because your child still has the choice to choose. But these things are more successful than the approach that we use oftentimes.
Okay. Thank you, Sania.
Yes.
That was a mouthful. Thank you. And thank you for sharing with us how we can pivot as parents so that we can have a positive experience, and our children can, once we are done, I don't think we're ever done parenting, but there comes a point in time where we don't have the 100% responsibility for these lives as we have them now. They will look back, and they will take some of the positive aspects of our parenting with them in their own relationships, in their own homes, and their children will be able to benefit, so that we can have generational success instead of generational failures. Thank you very much.
That. Thank you so much for having me, and wishing all the parents here who are listening all the best. And just feel free to reach out to us for support. And yeah, we're here for you. Resources are here for you.
Okay, tell us about those resources before we say goodbye. What are those resources?
So for myself, I'm a mental health therapist and a parent coach. And so within our coaching program, that's with Dookie's Institute, we do help a lot of families through marriage restoration and parenting transformation. And we have designed 2 roadmaps, a marriage relationship roadmap for restoration, and also a parenting one. The parenting program, which is specially designed from years of hearing what parents have been going through and how I've helped them throughout their process and what has bring success. I've used all those strategies and put them into a comprehensive group program where I go through each of these things with parents on a weekly basis. If parents prefer to do this one-on-one, we're okay with that too. But currently it's a group program, maximum of 10 people who are involved in it at a time, because it's coaching, but it also goes to the deep stuff. And so I need to be able to spend enough time and attention to make sure that you're reaching your parenting goal. So we're looking at launching or reopening that program in November. So for those who would like to connect with me, you can send me an email at Courtney and Sania Dookie at gmail.com. And or connect with us through our Facebook page, which is CS Dookie. Just send us a private message there, or connect with us on Instagram, which is at CS Dookie as well. You can find us there, and on our website at dookiesinstitute.ca. So there are so many places you can reach out to us.
Make contact, yeah.
We're here to support you, so connect with us.
Okay. Thank you, Sania. How long is the program?
So the program is 10 weeks.
10 weeks, okay.
10 weeks, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. And thank you for giving of your time and sharing your expertise with us.
Thanks for having me, and all the best.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for listening in. As usual, we want to thank today's guest, Sania Dookie of dookiesinstitute.ca, Xavier Anderson for providing music. Until next time, I am your host, Yolanda Jack, reminding you, he who watches the wind will not sow. He who watches the clouds will not reap. Ecclesiastes 11 and verse 4. You were born for greatness. Step out into your greatness so that mankind can benefit from you being here. So long, until next time.
Intentional. We may be immigrants, but we are still intentional. We are dependable. It's just that set the bar, but still the best